Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter and analyst for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. The Lakers fell 125 to 107 in Game 2. OKC takes a commanding 2-0 series lead, winning the first couple games by a combined 34 points. Despite that, it has felt like these games have been much closer than the final scores, and that's because they have been. LA was in Game 1 until the end of the third quarter when OKC went on that flurry leading into the fourth quarter where they put the game away. Similar story tonight. Lakers were in this one. They were down just 6 a couple minutes into the fourth quarter, still within striking distance midway through the fourth quarter before OKC just buried them. So they now come back to LA down 2-0 and have to win 4 of the potential 5 remaining games in this series to extend their season and make the Western Conference Finals. It was a highly emotional game, which featured a flagrant foul, featured a couple of technical fouls. Both sides were upset with the officiating, but on the Lakers side, they were obviously were pretty upset. And Austin Reaves spoke with the refs after. I mean, the whole team spoke with the refs, but Austin Reaves was leading the charge after the game. Then JJ and Austin and a couple others had some comments after the game. So that inevitably was going to flare up at some point in this series with just how OKC is officiated on both sides of the ball, and certainly some flopping on their end tonight. That was addressed to a degree by the officiating. Right, they had the Chet foul against DeAndre Ayton. That was originally an offensive foul that got overturned to a defensive foul. Then you had the Austin Shai flagrant, which OKC challenged to be a defensive foul on Austin. That challenge was unsuccessful, and it got upgraded to a flagrant foul 1. Even with that, though, there was a lot of contact that the Lakers played through, particularly in the paint at the rim, looking at LeBron specifically, and just did not get those calls tonight. So that was a big point of emphasis for the group post-game. But as JJ also said after the game, the Lakers did not lose this game because of the refereeing. I don't think it necessarily helped. And again, I think there was, on both sides, there's some calls that they botched. But I mean, the Lakers have just been within striking distance deep into these games. And the second you take your foot off the gas for a moment, right? The mental lapses, the mistakes, the turnovers, the not boxing out, not rotating, giving up triple penetration, just all these little things have added up into big runs for OKC and just eventually breaking the game open. But certainly some positives tonight. Again, LA was had their first lead after a quarter in halftime, 1-point lead. Had by far their best quarter of the series in that second quarter. And I think that should be the blueprint of how they try to build off from these first couple games and go into Game 3 and try to make this a series. But I mean, I think that second quarter, Austin Reaves bounced back in a big way with all of the noise, all of the chatter around him and his playoff numbers, and just if he was ready for this moment. He scored a playoff career high 31 points against the best defense in the NBA, and not just the best defense in the NBA, but a defense that is specifically led by their perimeter defense, and doing that against the Kason Wallaces and Alex Caruso's and Lou Dort's, and then driving into the Chet Holmgrens and Isaiah Hartensteins, and just awesome performance from Austin. And LA really needed that to at least remain competitive through the first 3.5 quarters. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Appreciate you guys for tuning in despite the loss tonight. Let's get into it. So Buha's big picture is mistakes and mental lapses have done LA in. And this was one of the keys to the series going into it, was just going to be LA's ability to focus at a high level for basically 48 minutes. You cannot, again, I made this point after game one or during the game one analysis, like, you're going to have 10 to 12 turnovers against OKC. I mean, against basically any team, you walk into a minimum of 10 turnovers or so. Against that defense in a playoff setting, there's a baseline level of you're going to have some mistakes. But I think that the key has been trying to prevent those mistakes from compounding. And LA has just not been able to do that. I thought they did a better job of that in game 2 than they did in game 1. But they still had, I believe, 8 turnovers in the third quarter, which I think is similar to game 1. They had 7 or 8 in that third quarter. And overall, 21 turnovers tonight after having 18 in game 1. So now they have 39 turnovers through the 2 games of this series. And it's been an issue all playoffs. And this has been like the fatal flaw of this group so far through these first 8 playoff games. Has just been they've been turning the ball over at the highest rate in the league. And I think they've really missed Luka Doncic and the way that his presence slots everybody in a more appropriate role from a ball handling and passing and playmaking perspective. And they clearly have had to rely on certain guys and ask guys to do certain things that they're just not as accustomed to or not as equipped to do. And like even when the Lakers have won, even go back to the Houston series, like their offense has rarely been pretty throughout the playoffs. Their offense has been more satisfactory, and they've been a bottom 4 offense for basically the entire playoffs. It's game 1 and game 2 of the Houston series, they had incredible shooting performances, and that helped them win those 2 games. But since then, they have been a pedestrian to bad offense, and it's largely been the defense that has carried LA and allowed them to be competitive and win the Houston series and then be in these games up until late third, early fourth quarter. Also look at the offensive rebounds. JJ pointed this out after the game, but they've done a decent job keeping OKC off the glass from like a volume perspective, but every one of their offensive rebounds has been a backbreaker. Through the first couple games, Chet has just destroyed them on the glass, and several of his offensive rebounds have led to putback dunks or just putbacks. They've gotten kick out threes, or someone's relocating and then they cut and they just get a layup out of it. So while the volume of their offensive rebounds has not been the same as like the Houston series, it's been just instrumental in some of these stretches where OKC's, the Lakers have done a really good job by and large against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's only scored 40 points through the first couple games, 7 for 13 shooting. So he's only taken 28 shots through the first couple games. And tonight, 3 turnovers for him. So that they've held him to 10 turnovers over the first couple games. But despite Shai being held in check, Chet Holmgren has killed them. AJ Mitchell has killed them. Jared McCain off the bench has been a huge difference maker. Game 1, it was Isaiah Joe. Tonight, it was Kason Wallace, who had a couple big shots and plays down the stretch in the fourth quarter. So Isaiah Hartenstein was incredible defensively tonight. I thought his defensive playmaking as a shot blocker and poking balls loose and playing passing lanes, and then also his rebounding, his defense against DeAndre Ayton. Like OKC has just been winning the non-Shai minutes, and that has been a big issue. And if you look at where this game flipped, the Lakers, Austin draws the flagrant foul 1 on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and there's also a technical foul on Alex Caruso. LA makes all 3 free throws, and then Austin hits a 3. They're up by 5 at that point. They're up 69-64. From that point on, OKC outscores them 29-11 the rest of the third quarter. And they did that all with Shai off of the floor. And so for those who have been critical of the praise that Shai has gotten, and people saying he should be the back-to-back MVP or he's the best player in the world, like this kind of played into some of that narrative. Like I don't want to use this as the only evidence that that's not true, but like very few teams, if you go through, just looking at some of the other teams or players that were in that conversation, very few, if any of them, could have the type of run that OKC had in the third quarter with their best player on the bench. And they just did not miss a beat and actually looked, part of it was because of how much the Lakers have been throwing at Shai with the doubling and with the aggressive scheme. But AJ Mitchell just slicing his way to the rim and into the mid-range. Chet hit a couple jumpers, also with the offensive rebound, some of the cutting, Isaiah Hartenstein and his DHOs and offensive rebounding, and then just getting enough from McCain and Wallace and their, Caruso, and like they just have their depth is that's been the standout thing to me, is like their depth is just absolutely insane. And they also run a pretty quick rotation where guys are constantly subbing in every like 3 minutes. So you always have like 1 to 2 fresh bodies on the court. And I think that's something that the Lakers can try to implement. They don't have the same depth. They have nowhere near the same depth. Like we've seen the difference in the benches here. It has been night and day comparing the two benches on the respective teams. But I think really the Lakers have been right there. They've had a successful defensive game plan. They have been able to limit Shai. And I think not only limit Shai, but like we saw, I mean, they were 5 for 20 on threes in the first half. They were 9 for 16 in the second half. So I think they missed a bunch of good looks in the first half. It did regress to the mean in the second half in a real way. But I think if you're LA, like you got to give up something. It's impossible to have a perfect defensive scheme that takes away everything. So the Lakers have been selling out against Shai and betting on like Lou Dort. He did eventually hit a 3 in the second half, but he started this game 0 for 4 from deep, right? And he also had a turnover on a drive where you're putting Lou Dort in a position where he either is becoming a high volume shooter or he's having to make plays on the weak side. And that plays into LA's favor. So I think a lot of what they've done defensively has been solid. I think the issue out of the initial scheme has been, if you see when OKC is forced, if they're ever hedging or blitzing or they're putting 2 on the ball, look at how OKC rotates back to their men and matching up versus the Lakers. And it's certainly like there's an athleticism and speed component, but I also think it's their defense is just so smart where you see immediately, like as 2 go to the ball, they start zoning it up. Everybody's communicating, everybody's on a string, and they are warping the 3 remaining players into how do we match up against these 4 guys here. And with the Lakers, there's been some of that, but it hasn't been as crisp. It hasn't been as sharp. It hasn't been as seamless as it is for OKC. And you're seeing that a lot of LA's issues defensively are stemming from the initial 12 seconds of the possession are great against Shai, right? And they might even rotate well out of the initial double team, but eventually as OKC extends the possession, there's inevitably going to be a breakdown on the Lakers side. And again, it's also with the switching, OKC has really punished them with the offensive rebounding, specifically against the switching. Like how many of those offensive rebounds do you see? It's Chet Holmgren going up against Austin Reaves or going up against Luke Kennard, or it's Isaiah Hartenstein going up against one of those guys. Even against Rui, Chet, the Lakers went small late. Chet got a big offensive rebound against Rui. Like even Rui is undersized in that head-to-head matchup against either one of those guys. So when those 2 guys specifically are on the floor and the Lakers are switching as much as they are, I think it's like, again, they're kind of winning the initial battle of the possession. And I made this analogy in game 1. Like they've won the battle against Shai, but they're losing the war. And this is where I think they have to, I don't know if they can run the aggressive doubles on every single possession, because I think at some point it's sort of like, to me, when a team is up and they start intentionally fouling, it's like you're kind of creating a problem when you don't necessarily need to. And I think at some point, let's just see a few minutes of what the Lakers defense straight up looks like against Shai. You can run the ant coverage of like aggressively shrinking the floor and then getting out to shooters. But I would like to see at least to start game 3, maybe, or at some point, maybe to start the second half of game 3. I want to see a stretch of play Shai straight up and let's just see how it looks. And if he cooks you, then, because a lot, like some of the breakdowns have also been Shai just splits the double. And then once Shai splits the double, he's getting downhill, he's getting layups, or he's pulling up from the mid range. It's like there could be some elements of that if they play it more straight up. But I think there's diminishing returns at some point with, like, they have had success and he's obviously turned the ball over. He's been limited offensively in terms of just the volume of shots, the quality of shots. I think LA's done a pretty good job specifically against him. But at some point, you are daring a much more talented supporting cast to beat you compared to the success you had against Houston. And that is one of the other biggest things that we've seen is like OKC playing with an advantage is not Houston playing with an advantage. They are getting dunks and layups and cuts and open threes. And yes, they will occasionally turn the ball over. They will make mistakes. They're not robots out there, but they are executing at a much higher level. And I feel like the Lakers are constantly putting themselves at a disadvantage in rotation. So I think, again, the Shai scheme has overall been successful. And it's actually been more the non-Shai minutes that have been the issue for the Lakers so far. But I think there's like a cumulative effect too of if you are constantly doubling and rotating, there's a fatigue element that eventually catches up to your legs in the second half. And I think that's partly what we've seen is like the Lakers have been able to keep up this defensive intensity and effort through almost 3 quarters. And then right around that like 14, 15 minute mark in terms of how many minutes are left, you see they just kind of hit a physical wall and OKC is still fresh. And then they just create the separation. So, but I think ultimately, like if we look back at these first couple games, the 2 biggest things to me that have stood out have been in terms of like why LA has lost has been the turnovers and the offensive rebounds. And those 2 things, and really the third again is the inability to contain dribble penetration on non-Shai ball handlers. Like again with Shai, he's split the double sometimes. He's made some tough contested jumpers. That's going to happen. But AJ Mitchell has been, he was my X factor going into the series. He has been incredible through these first couple games tonight. 20 points, 7 for 12 shooting, 6 for 7 at the line, 6 assists. Like he's looking like, I think he could be a future all-star type player. And he's really just hurt. Feels like he's breaking out right now in a real way against the Lakers defense. And he's really hurt them. In terms of notable performers, let's pull this up here. I will be saving Austin for a takeaway. So we'll just go through his line pretty quickly, but 31 points, 10 to 16 shooting, 3 for 6 on threes, 8 for 10 on free throws, 2 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 turnovers. I think that's the biggest blemish on his night was the team high 5 turnovers. But I will touch on Austin in a moment. Then LeBron, 23 points, 9 of 18 shooting, 1 for 4 on threes, 4 for 4 at the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 3 turnovers. I thought LeBron really led that second half surge after the gut punch of OKC going on that extended run. Now, I think depending on when you split it up, it was either a 32-14 or 29-11 run. And, it just, like he was great in the fourth quarter. If anything, I think the Lakers went away from LeBron far too much in the second. Well, they didn't start as much going to LeBron. I would say like the first and third quarters, they could have gone to LeBron a little bit more. He was a big part of the second quarter run, but I would like to see even more volume from him in LA going like OKC is being aggressive with the fronting and the switching. And a lot of times if the Lakers are running these pick and rolls to try to draw the switch onto LeBron or to try to initiate an entry pass into LeBron, what OKC is doing is they are pressuring the ball handler to pick up the dribble, and then they are retreating and sandwiching LeBron with the guy fronting him and then the guy behind him. And they're really trying to take away those entry passes to LeBron around the elbow, around the top of the arc. But he continues to be awesome. I think really the only thing tonight was like the jumper wasn't falling. He was 8 for 14 inside the arc, 1 for 4 on threes, and also missed a couple of long twos. But I think he just continues to be LA's most steady player. And if anything, I thought they could have featured him even more offensively tonight. And as JJ said after the game, JJ said LeBron gets the worst whistle he's ever seen from a superstar. And I thought there was at least 2, if not 3 of his made baskets should have been and ones. And they just weren't called. Rui continues to be an efficiency monster, 16 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal, 6 for 10 shooting, 4 for 7 on threes. He did most of his damage in the first half. I'm double checking here, but I think he had 11 points in the first half. So only 5 in the second half. And I think OKC he's been a big beneficiary of OKC loves to roam with Chet, and that's the way they like to deploy him defensively. So a lot of times he will be cheating too aggressively off of Rui. And one of the smart adjustments the Lakers made in this game was really hitting that skip pass of they did it early in the game where they found Rui for an early three that he missed, Marcus for an early three that he missed, but they were smartly like, okay, because OKC is helping so aggressively over, we got to make that skip pass to the corner to make them play this more honestly. I thought Rui has been a big beneficiary of just the weak side lack of attention that there is from OKC's defense, and he has really eaten off of that. But he continues to shoot the ball above 50% on threes, which is just absurd. I thought defensively, I think it's been up and down with him. Like the Lakers, I think he had some nice post defense against Chet. I think he's still continued to beat the drum of when Rui's defending the post. I think he does a pretty good job when he's him switched on to AJ Mitchell or Shai, or sometimes making some of those rotations or doubles. I think he could be a little late or a little flat footed and just get blown by. But I mean, it's tough to criticize. I mean, he's just been playing awesome basketball all postseason and has been, I mean, I said LeBron's been the Lakers' most steady player, but like Rui's been just so efficient for LA and just a much needed shooting threat that LA has just not had consistently outside of him. Marcus, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, 4 for 13 shooting. So he is now 8 for 28 in the series. He was 1 for 7 on threes, 5 for 5 at the line. I think the defense on Shai, like it's Marcus did a pregame hit with Amazon who had the game. And he was talking about, like, I need to be better offensively. I need to do more, but it's obviously it's a tough ask on me just based on what I'm trying to do defensively. So I give Marcus a little bit of grace because of how, like, he's defending the soon-to-be 2-time MVP, and he's having to hound him up and down the floor and wrestling with him off the ball. And, like, it's just Marcus has the most important job defensively by far for the Lakers, which is just lock into Shai, be as physical as possible, funnel him into the doubles, deny him off of the ball. And I think overall he's done a really solid job in that regard. At the same time, I think there's been a little bit too much of Marcus offensively these past couple of games, especially like if it's catch and shoot threes, I don't mind. I referenced it last game. There was a couple of pull-up threes with like 17 on the shot clock. I don't like those are not shots that are consistently in Marcus's bag. And I think one of the things the Lakers did try to do, and I think was a successful strategy against OKC in the regular season to a degree, was play bully ball. Because if you're putting even AJ Mitchell, who's a pretty stout dude for his size, but whether it's AJ or Kason or Isaiah Joe, like if they're trying to Jeremy McCain, if they're trying to hide somebody on Marcus, the way you can punish that is going into the post and trying to draw fouls or just score over them. And Marcus is, I think, an underrated post player for a point guard size guy. But I think they've force-fed it a little bit too much. And I thought at times it took the Lakers offense out of rhythm. And he's just not had an efficient start to this series offensively. And again, based on the defensive ask, I do give him some grace, but I also think there's probably a better shot distribution with taking away a few of his shots and giving that to be it Luke Kennard, Rui, or DA if DA can seal and catch the ball. And speaking of DA, I thought DA, the one thing he's done well through the first couple games has been the rebounding, and he entered tonight's game leading the playoffs in rebounds in terms of the currently active players. So that I think is a big testament to him. He had 5 offensive rebounds tonight. At the same time, after starting 5 for 5 in the first half of game 1, DA's gone just 1 for 14 since then. That is not a typo, or that is not a misspeak on my part. Like 1 for 14. He is shooting under 10% since starting the series 5 for 5. And both Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren have just completely neutralized DA. He continues to bring the ball down. I do not understand it. It is one of his worst habits. It's actually a bad habit of his going back to his college days. Like if you look at the old scouting reports on DA, this was one of the things they noted that he constantly did. And like when he's at his worst is when he is catching the ball and bringing it down, or getting an offensive rebound and bringing it down. And so even some of the positive things he's done have been offset by a couple of those offensive rebounds got poked away, and a couple turnovers tonight, had a couple of turnovers or slapaways in the second half of game one. And it's just, has not been the same player since that strong start in the first half of game one. And now we have 3 halves, 6 quarters where I think he's just been really rough offensively and has kind of shrunk from what the Lakers have needed from him. And I mean, he just can't do anything against Isaiah Hartenstein offensively right now. And if he somehow gets some position or whatever, like that, you have Chet flying in from behind to block or alter the shot. So he's been blocked a couple times. He's been stripped, and he just has not been the same player. And again, I give him some credit for the rebounding, but the catching, the being strong with the ball, the playing with force, the playing with physicality, he did that to open the game. Like I thought that was a really strong first half in game one. He missed his final shot of the half, and that was okay because he started 5 for 5. But then from that point, he just has not been able to find any offensive consistency or rhythm. I think it's really hurt the Lakers. And you saw JJ benched or went away from him because Chet hit a 3 on him. And then there was another play where I think that there was an and one or offensive rebound or something. And then he got yanked with about like just under 7 minutes left, or around the 7-minute mark. And then Jackson played for several minutes, and then Jackson had a couple of mistakes, and then he got pulled, and the Lakers went small for the final couple of minutes, and then OKC sealed the game, and then they, both teams emptied their benches. But DA, it's been, I mean, this has been a matchup that I think has exposed some of his limitations against some of the or not even some of the best defense in the league, and specifically like this defense, right? And he did not play well against them in the season series. He had been in single digits in all 4 contests against them, and then did end up reaching double digits in the first half of game one. But since then, I believe has scored 3 points on 1 for 14 shooting. So just has been an absolute zero offensively outside of the offensive rebounding, which does have value. But even in some of those, he is getting the ball stripped or tipped away or whatever. So he's got to lock in and be much better, I think, moving forward. Off the bench, Luke Kennard finally found a bit of a groove and a rhythm offensively. 10 points, 4 for 5 shooting, 2 for 3 on threes. There was a nice short roll kick out from LeBron. And then he also had a nice relocation for a 3. And so I want to see Luke shoot even more, let it fly, be more confident and aggressive offensively. But it was nice to see that. I think he continues to be we're going to get to Jake LaRavia, but he continues to be the most harmful defender. And what, Crane just had the numbers on this, where Luke had the most contested shots at the rim in game one. And this is something that smart defenses have been doing, where they're manipulating with how much the Lakers switch. They are manipulating the floor to wherever Luke's man is. That's the guy who ends up in the dunker spot or in the post. And then what often happens is Luke has to be the low man and the final line of defense. And you're seeing layups and dunks and offensive rebounds. And it's not been just him. I think Austin has had some of this as well, but Luke in particular, I think, just doesn't play with the same level of physicality. And a lot of times it's just getting out of the way and letting them score. So like, I think in game one, they were 5 for 6 at the rim against him. And I don't know what the updated numbers are off of game two, but I would say like that's been the one tough thing for LA is they've really had to try to game plan around his defense limitations. And even then, I don't think they've done a good job because they haven't been pre-switching. They haven't been scram switching. I think they need to get much better with that, because you should be shifting Luke. Like if Luke's the last line of defense, if Austin's the last line of defense, at least Austin sometimes will take a charge. But even then, it's like you're gonna, I mean, we've seen what the result is with Chet and Isaiah and even Shea or AJ Mitchell getting to the rim. It's like they're gonna score if you don't have your size and rim protection back there. Jackson Hayes, I would say, like, an up and down game. I thought, especially in comparison to DA, was able to put pressure on the rim, and he had a nice little floater, had a couple of lobs, and some of the the rebounding and passing had some nice short roll plays. But he also struggled with foul trouble tonight. Had an offensive foul with an illegal screen. Several Lakers, actually, Marcus, Austin, and Jackson all had 5 fouls tonight. But I think I was more on the side of this is more of a DA series and less of a Jackson series. I think that has still kind of played out, but the Lakers need one, and ideally both of them, to play better than they have up to this point in the series. Then Jake LaRavia, I mean, he played I think a playoff low 10 minutes tonight, if I'm not mistaken on that. Let's see. No, he played 9 in game 5 against the Rockets, but otherwise he had been at between 14 and 18 minutes in every other game. It's just getting to the point. Like we saw he had the 3-point play, the foul on Jalen Williams. He has been not even just a 0, but I would say a negative offensively. And then in addition, like the only thing I think he's done like reasonably well has been pressuring Shai up the floor and like funneling him into some of the doubles. But the Lakers need more from him than just that. Like that can't be the only thing that he's doing out there. So I think the Lakers are in a tough spot, especially with no Vando, where I think if there was a Vando, and we'll see if he is available in game 3, game 4, but whatever, he continues to be day to day according to JJ. If Vando was available, you could maybe just take Jake out and put in Adu got some time tonight. Maybe it's more Vando and Adu, and you're just leaning more into your athleticism and defense. But I mean, I don't really know where they go from here because he's just not been playable. And I think I think the solution should be pulling him from the rotation. I just think the alternatives aren't really much more appealing. I mean, maybe you just go Adu and Bronny. Maybe that's the way you go from here on out. Like, I think Jake in theory still makes some sense with the size, 6'7", 6'8", 235, 240, but you're just not feeling him out there. Or if you are, it's been in a negative way. I mean, the Lakers were minus 14 in his 10 minutes, which, yeah, I mean, it was really rough. And he got pulled quickly in that third quarter shift and then didn't play the rest of the game. So I think it's ideally the Lakers have more bench options and more playable guys. And it's not a situation where you're throwing in Adu, who has just been out of the rotation for several weeks. Bronny has at least been in the rotation and was in the Houston series. Nick Smith and Dalton have not been in the rotation at all. It's like, I don't think it's great when you're like, I mean, you look at OKC, it's like everybody's in the rotation for OKC. They're playing 11, 12 guys. Everybody's staying fresh. And, they have like Aaron Wiggins, who's now been benched entirely, which if he was on the Lakers, I mean, he'd be taking all the LaRavia minutes and playing even more. But yeah, the Lakers are in a tough spot with that position right now because it does feel like they're at 7 playable guys without Vando. And it's hard to beat a team that's playing 11 guys and rotating in and out and staying fresh. Adu came in and he didn't stick out in a bad way, which might come off as like a backhanded compliment. It's not. It's just I thought the rebounding, the energy. I mean, even his rebounds are impressive. Like any athletic feat that Adu does is impressive. But I think that the one thing with him, although he functionally was the Vando replacement in the rotation, is that you see like similar to Vando, OKC, and it's been the same with Jake. Okay, like, and that's where some of these lineups with like Jackson, Jake, Vando, Jackson, Jake, Adu, it just gives the defense so many guys to cheat off of and load up the paint. So I think you saw like they started the fourth quarter with Adu for a couple of minutes, and it was like I think it was DA, LeBron, Adu, Rui and Marcus, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. And despite having Marcus and Rui and LeBron and DA, like 4 offensive-minded guys who can all attack from different spots of the floor, it was still like whoever, I forgot who was guarding Adu, but that guy was just camped in the lane and doing the, 1 foot in the paint for 2.5 seconds, bring it out. And they just did not care about him at all. And I think the Lakers could also probably counter that. Like I think the difference with maybe Vando is that they'd want to run some flare screens or DHOs. And I think they are trying to actively hide Adu offensively and not put him in the action whatsoever, unless it's going to be like just a wide open back cut or like an offensive rebound or something. But I think that they got to review the film on that. Like Lakers technically won his minutes, which I think, is notable, but you felt like you felt him pop out with the rebounding. But I would like to see them try to figure out a way to make him more effective and leverage the athleticism offensively. And then DK, Nick Smith, and Bronny only played in garbage time. In terms of stat of the night, my two stats of the night are plus 13 for OKC in the 20 non-Shai minutes. They were only plus 5 in the Shai minutes. So this was a close game with Shai on the floor. They got destroyed when Shai was off, particularly in that third quarter. And then 21 turnovers for the Lakers. They're just not going to beat this team when they turn the ball over that many times. I think if the Lakers beat this team in LA, it would have to be in LA, obviously, otherwise it's a sweep. If they win game 3 or game 4, I think you're going to have to see like a 15 or less turnover game. I think once the Lakers hit 16 or more turnovers, it's going to be really difficult to beat this team unless you're just winning the volume game from 3, which the Lakers are not winning through the first couple games. So I would say them lose. Like JJ mentioned this at practice yesterday, that he was disappointed by the non-Shai minutes and how I think they were plus 9 in the non-Shai minutes in game 1. Even better tonight with the plus 13. But the turnovers and losing the Shai or the non-Shai minutes, that has, I think, been a big blow for LA to start this one. And then let's get into 3 takeaways, and then we'll get into the Q&A. Takeaway number 1 is Austin Reaves' big bounce back. So after all of the noise over the past 48 hours, and there was noise on this show and Lakers Collective and a bunch of other shows, obviously on the national scene, there was trade in Austin left and right. Austin delivered with a playoff career high 31 points against one of the best perimeter defenses in modern history. Like OKC is just objectively one of the best defenses in modern history. But then again, their strength is they have an all-time perimeter group. They are backed by one of the best rim protectors in the league. And I think the guy who, if I'm not mistaken, finished second in Defensive Player of the Year in Chet, I don't know if they've announced the voting. Obviously, they announced Wemby winning it, but I assume Chet is going to finish second in Defensive Player of the Year. He's the second best rim protector in the NBA, probably second or third. They've got an army of defensive talent, but to see Austin struggle the way he had in the season series against OKC, and to see the way he struggled in game 1 and some of the counters that he had in game 2, I just thought it was a really impressive bounce back and really spoke to him and his mindset. And for some guys, this would spiral out of control. And I think he responded immediately to it. You even saw he was talking coming out of halftime to the crew, and Austin's typically pretty friendly with the media and gives good answers, and just was locked in, very short. Even post game went pretty short, and was asked about his performance and just said, "I'm just playing basketball." And that kept it at that. So I thought it was the proper response from him, and it ended up being. I don't think that playoff career high in points always correlates to best playoff game, but it was probably his best playoff game, or at least in that top 2 or top 3, especially when factoring in, to me, OKC is at an entire, the defenses he's faced are Memphis, Golden State, Denver twice, Minnesota, Houston, OKC. OKC is in a class of their own, I think, by far among that group of teams that Austin has played in the playoffs. So I thought it was just a huge performance. And to me, the biggest differences were, now, we'll get into some of the things he has to be better with, because he did not play a perfect game. And you could look at Lakers were minus 20 in his 38 minutes, which was a team worst mark. He led the team with 5 turnovers. I thought defensively there were times he either was giving up the offensive rebounds or not able to protect the rim or just blown by. But I thought he did a much better job of playing more under control in this game, and he did a really nice job of putting his defender, who was often Kayson Wallace, but sometimes Caruso or Dort or whoever, AJ Mitchell. But he would put them in jail on his hip or behind him. And for those who don't understand or know what that term means, it's just basically like usually coming off of a pick and roll. Like Chris Paul was like the master of this. But you instead of, I think what Austin could do sometimes against this defense would be speed things up too much and be like, I created the initial advantage. Now I need to attack and get downhill immediately. And I thought he did a much better job of being patient, reading the defense. And then if he got by Kayson Wallace using the pick, it was all of a sudden slow down and keep him behind you, keep him on your hip, and then leverage that into kind of like almost like you're just kind of pushing the line in terms of getting downhill and sort of just advancing past the next line of defense. So with that, he hit several mid-range jumpers. He had a couple of floaters and runners. He got to the rim and drew fouls multiple times. This was much more of an Austin performance with the game high 10 free throw attempts. Now, 3 of those were off of the technical foul from Alex Caruso and the flagrant foul from Shai. But so 7 free throws in terms of like him drawing fouls. He had a couple of and ones. And it just, I thought him doing that against Kayson Wallace, who for my money is a top 5 perimeter defender in the league. And specifically, if we're talking like ball pressure, ball hawking guards, Kayson Wallace is probably top 3. And had locked up Austin for basically the entire season series and game 1. Austin, I thought, got the better end of it. And of course, there's some of the shot. I think like some of the looks were similar to game 1, and it just some looks fell, some didn't. He got his 3-point shot back, 3 for 6. So that was nice to see when that had been a real issue, shooting 12% on threes. But I thought, again, with the exception of, so there were some defensive possessions, some of the turnovers. He still had a couple, he had that one where he splits the double and then he gets by a third guy, but then he's moving too fast and he just falls out of bounds. He had another one where Chet just ripped him. A couple, lob attempt ones where, he just, I think there was one to LeBron where he just threw the ball out about. Like some of that stuff's got to be better, but overall, I think like I didn't end up doing my game 1 rewatch episode last night, but I did complete my game 1 rewatch, and I actually came away more optimistic with every part of Austin's game 1 performance outside of the actual shot making, shot selection, and like how he played against their pressure. But I thought the passing, and we saw that again tonight. I thought some of the defensive plays with the switching onto Chet or being the second guy doubling against Shai, or I think Kayson Wallace. He rotated over to him, swiped him, and prevented a layup on that. So, I thought there were some things that he did do well in game 1 that were completely and understandably overshadowed by the 3 for 16 shooting performance and not being able to make a 3 and just really struggling on the big stage. But he responded in a really encouraging way, and I think he's got to continue this, right? I don't think he's going to drop 31 every single night. I don't think he's going to hit 3 threes or shoot 50% on threes or get to the free throw line 10 times every single night. But I think he's shown like he can do this against this caliber of defense and against not even this caliber of defense, but this specific defense, which is going to be in LA's way for the next few years. So I think he's got it. He's obviously, like you don't rest on your laurels with just one game and one performance, but I think this was a much needed palate cleanser for him. It resets the narrative. It resets the conversation around him. And now he has to sustain this the rest of the series. He has to I think go out, if the Lakers lose, then at least go out on a high note and show that if you're like, however the Lakers want to structure the hierarchy of the team, that Austin can at least be a part of that and be a high level part of it, right? Because tonight, I mean, he led the team in scoring, and I thought the offense overall looked at its best with the ball in his hands tonight. And that was far from the case in game one. Again, he was not even, I would say, like the third guy that the offense looked the best in the hands of. Like, obviously it was LeBron, and then even Marcus had a rough shooting night, but he led the team with 7 assists. So I thought just a really nice bounce back performance from Austin. And I think a much needed response, a much needed step in the right direction. And we'll see how he plays the rest of the series. I doubt he has another 3 for 16 performance, but I think this was just much needed for his confidence and to quiet a lot of the chatter and the noise. In terms of takeaway number 2, just quick injury updates. So I didn't get to touch on this. I touched on it on Lakers Collective, but just going to run through it quickly. Luka spoke with reporters a couple days ago and said he was originally supposed to miss 8 weeks, which was the first time we were ever given a concrete timetable on Luka. That means that he just passed the 5-week mark, so he's supposed to be out almost 3 more weeks or so, which would put that return at like late Western Conference Finals at the earliest. He did start running, but he has not done contact or one-on-one stuff yet. So it seems unlikely he's going to return in LA. Maybe he and the Lakers have been playing this all coy and he does make a surprise return, or we saw with Austin, obviously going to game 3, there was a surprise questionable designation in the Houston series, but it is trending toward Luka likely missing the rest of this series, or at least missing the next couple games, which could end up being the rest of this series. And it's just really unfortunate because I think with what the Lakers showed these first couple games, if they had Luka and the rotation was a little bit different, some of the back end rough bench minutes weren't there, I think that this could be a 1-1 series going back to LA with Luka. Now, obviously, OKC's missing J-Dub, so you heal J-Dub, and maybe it still is 2-0 with just how deep OKC is. But I think with Luka, this would have been a much more interesting series up to this point. And then quickly, takeaway number 3, game 3 adjustments. JJ said after the game that everything was on the table in terms of lineup and rotation changes. So I doubt they change the starting lineup, but I guess that's on the table. I think the bigger thing is going to be changing some of the bench lineups and the bench rotation. And that could be pulling Jake LaRavia from the lineup. That could be, again, I think LA's in a tough spot where I don't think DA has been playing well for a game and a half here. Jackson has been up and down. I just think there's a limitation to how much he could play in general against this team. Jake has been really rough. So that's right now 3 of your top 8 rotation players. So you can replace Jake with Adu or Dalton or Bronny or whoever, but I don't know how much of an upgrade that actually would be. And even then, it's like you still need more collectively from like several guys. But I think the Lakers need to play more through LeBron. And I think they got to do a better job of consistently feeding him and feeding him on the block, or running more stack actions or Spain pick and roll, and really just finding ways to get LeBron, but also get LeBron the ball, I think, closer to the basket. Because some of the stuff with above the arc or elbow extended, I just think it allows OKC to shift over and play their best base defense. But we've seen, like, one of the plays that LeBron should have gotten an and one on was he just he had Dort 1-on-1, bulldozed him, just backed him down, spun off of him, had a layup. Jalen Williams rotated over, fouled him. They didn't call it. LeBron was in some pain for a couple of possessions, and like that's the type of stuff that I think the Lakers got to spam even more. I don't feel like they've fully spammed the LeBron actions to the degree that they should. I think the non-Shai defense just has to be better, and it feels like it almost has felt like LA's taken a collective breath when Shai's off the floor, and they're like, okay, well, our whole game plan defensively is around stopping that dude. That guy's off, so like we can hang with these guys, and that's just not been the case. They've been getting their butts kicked in the non-Shai minutes, and like they have to be much sharper on both sides of the ball, but particularly defensively. I think JJ should entertain the idea of quicker subs. So I mean, I think with how hard the Lakers are trying to play defensively through the first, I mean, really the whole game, but especially like the first 3 quarters, it does feel like guys have worn down a bit, and just the activity level has had some diminishing returns. So I do wonder if ideally you expand the rotation a little bit and find like some bench guys who could actually contribute. But even if you can't do that, maybe it is a more like 3 to 4 minutes and, 8-minute mark. I mean, the starters have played well together, so you maybe extend the starters a little bit to start the first quarter, start the third quarter. But once you start getting into the lineups that are half starter, half bench, you are keeping a pretty quick rotation there of guys are rotating in every 3 minutes or so. And like he's done some of that, but I think it could be even quicker. And that does disrupt some chemistry and rhythm with some of the lineups. But I think clearly what the Lakers have been doing up to this point has not been working. And I think if they stick with the same rotation, we're going to see the same results and the team starting to taper out late in the third. And then offensively, I would like to recalibrate it a little bit toward a little less Marcus usage and shooting, and a little bit more Rui and Luke. If you could get those two guys going more consistently and being bigger parts of the offense, I think that, and ideally DA too, but he's got to be better offensively with the catching and the ceiling and whatnot. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A here. Jose, thank you for the super chat. Don't see how we'll get close to competing with OKC and San Antonio in the next years. Not many moves in summer to get us even close. We're going to waste Luka. I wouldn't go that far yet. I understand the doom and gloom nature right now. You're down 2-0. They have technically won by an average margin of 17. But I think what this is informing, if I'm the Lakers, I'm feeling like you're going into next year, I think, with Luka and LeBron and Austin and Marcus and Rui. And then everybody else, it's still TBD. Like I think the Jake, Vando, and Dalton contracts, it would be nice to get off that money. I would think it would be nice to either move DA to a bench role or get off of his contract as well. And then Jackson, I think at this point, I think he's okay. I'd be fine with him back as like a minimum backup, but I thought there was a point earlier in the season where it looked like he was maybe going to get a raise. I don't think that, maybe he gets like a slight bump, but I think he's pretty much, in my opinion, a solid backup, but at like a minimum level or basically just at the minimum level. That's where I would have him. And then Luke, I just think we've seen outside of the first couple games in Houston, like he's just not been the same player, and based on the defensive limitations mixed with at times the lack of shooting confidence, and then also I would say not being the same level of shooter these last you're putting this one aside in the first couple games, it's been 8 games, so there was a 5-game stretch there where he just was not the same player. I think he's clearly like the best defenses in the league can clearly just take him out entirely, and if not for some broken plays where he's able to shake loose, like that's just the state of his offensive impact right now. So what I would say is like I think it's starting to crystallize, in my opinion, like who fits and who doesn't, and the Lakers need to prioritize keeping the guys who fit, and then it's plugging in the pieces around those guys. And certainly I think we're kind of in the same spot where I think they need a center upgrade, and I think they still need some more wing depth and just like two-way perimeter talent. And that would go a long way, I think, in making them more competitive with those two teams. Skevcast, thank you for the super chat. The more I watch OKC, the more I'm impressed with their team depth. That being said, SGA is so overrated. His team could easily win playoff games without him. He has smart syndrome, i.e. being the best at something on the best team. Yeah, I mean, this was a point I made earlier in the show that I guess San Antonio's had some success without Wemby at times, but I think they're clearly a different team with Wemby on the floor compared to Wemby off. Denver had some success without Jokic in the regular season, but we saw in that Minnesota series, for as much heat and flack as he got when he was off the floor, they really struggled. And then I think we've also started to see with the Lakers, like just the offense has not been very good since Luka's been out. Like they've had team success and they found ways, they found a way to win that Houston series, and LeBron and JJ and Marcus and several guys, Rui deserve a lot of credit for that. But the Lakers went from, I mean, they were becoming a top 5 offense by the time that Luka and Austin went out in early April. And it felt like they were finally reaching their destiny of top 5 offense and like 10 to 15 defensively. And the OKC loss was humbling and revealing to some degree, but it also, like, they just have not been that good offensively since then. So I think to this point, like Shai can like have subpar games or be in foul trouble and be on the bench for 20, like, you see like how much the Lakers have struggled when LeBron's been off the floor. LeBron played 38 minutes tonight. If LeBron played 28 minutes tonight, like Shai did, the Lakers lose this game by like 30 points, 35 points. Like it's a bloodbath if LeBron missed an additional 10 minutes tonight. So yeah, no, it's definitely a luxury. I think you have to give them credit for the depth of the roster. I don't think that inherently takes away from Shai's greatness, but it is a luxury that, like, I think two things can be true where there are, like, you can put other great players in this same situation and maybe it looks even better. But like, I don't think inherently having this much depth and this much talent and skill around you takes away from him, but it is a luxury that shows that like he doesn't have to play his best or even be on the floor as much as is typically required for like the best players or biggest stars. And his team is fine. And actually tonight they were better with him off of the floor than on the floor, which, a lot of noise in the plus minus, and it depends on what lineups you're going up against. And, they had a big third quarter, but yeah, I mean, it's quite the luxury. And then he follows up, SGA equals Brunson on a normal playoff team. Just saying. I think SGA is better than Brunson still. Like, I'm not moved by that. I think the biggest thing, and this is ultimately, like, there's a size element here of, SGA is not the level of defender that Dort and Wallace and Caruso are, but I think he's better than some people say he is, like, just with the length and the quickness and the athleticism. But even if you're just comparing him to Brunson, like, he's 5 to 6 inches taller than Brunson. He's longer, he's quicker, and it's just harder to pick on Shai than it is to pick on Brunson. Like, Brunson can be like a fire hydrant out there with his post defense and get into the legs. But at the end of the day, if you can get to a certain spot on the floor, you could just rise up and shoot over Jalen Brunson. And we have seen New York be affected by his defensive limitations before. With Shai, I mean, he's obviously looking better in OKC system surrounded by their defenders, but Shai's a 6'6" athletic guard. Like, comparing him to Brunson from that perspective, and I think you're more so speaking about like star level and just like offensive game. And from that perspective, like, Brunson's obviously been tough as nails in the playoffs and had some playoff success and some big playoff moments. But I wouldn't go quite that far, but I think if you want to argue he's not the best player in the world, like, I'm not really going to disagree on that. Mint Millions, thank you for the super chat. Boys, OKC annoying with the towels on the bench, the smiling and laughing, cockiness. They're front runners, also bad for the NBA in terms of ratings and popularity. I've sensed some of this with OKC. Shai with some of the AJ Mitchell buckets or some of the Jared McCain shots, and he's waving the towels. And I think there are, like, I I think there are elements of OKC that are redeeming. Like they are a group that does not complain to the refs a lot. They seem to be close knit. I think they largely try to play, with the exception of the flopping and some of the dirty stuff defensively. Like I think by and large they do play the right way and like a high level of basketball, and there is something to their defense is like they make defense I think look entertaining for stretches in a way that just defense isn't always look the way that they make it look. But yeah, I mean there's definitely like an arrogant element to the group that I see why it rubs people the wrong way. And then you factor in some of the shenanigans offensively, some of the shenanigans defensively. And like, I mean, that's just, we knew this was going to be part of the series. It just is built into how they play, how they are. And I think for the Lakers, like I understand the frustration. I completely understand it, but you got to, I think, keep your composure a little bit, because it did feel like at times it felt like at times the Lakers felt it was 8-on-5 with the refs, and I understand that, but I also think ultimately, like if you start getting into it with like, and there was just several plays where someone's getting into it with the refs, not getting back, and you're now putting your team in a defensive disadvantage in transition, early offense, et cetera. So I think they just got to be better with that. Like it's just part of the OKC experience that there's no, you can complain. I mean, we've seen how many coaches have come out and like Chris Finch has led the charge, but how many coaches have come out and complained about the free throw disparity, about the way that they're officiated, about this or that? Like it doesn't really change. So at some point you just have to accept the reality of like, you're going to get frustrated with it, but you have to find a way to offset it. Christopher, thank you for the super chat. Stop SGA doubles, AJ McCain, Chet killing us. I'm more on this side. I was talking about it with a couple people in a group text, and we were going back and forth. A couple of us were on the stop doubling Shai side. One person was on the double Shai side, and they felt that they're having enough success with it, and that it was taking OKC out of rhythm offensively when he was on the floor. And I go back and forth. Like I think it has disrupted OKC's offense, and we've seen even with Shai, I feel like what it's done at times for Shai is speed Shai up, where like one of the first jumpers he hit, it felt like Shai had predetermined, like, I'm taking the shot because like he rejected the double. He got down and it was like, I'm shooting this no matter what. And it ended up being, I forgot, it might've been DA. I forgot who rotated over. Someone rotated over and like made a solid contest. He rose up, hit the shot. And like, that's obviously a shot he can make in his sleep, but it felt a little bit predetermined in a way that he typically doesn't play. And it felt like, because the Lakers have been so successful limiting him and primarily just like even limiting him getting shots on goal, that he was like, the second I break free, I have to shoot this, right? And he made it. But from like a process perspective, it has felt like they've been able, like Shai, one of his defining qualities is like he's always calm under pressure, and he plays at his own pace, right? Like that's one of the things that defines him. And at times in this series so far, the Lakers have been able to speed him up, and you're seeing some of the turnovers, some of the reads he's making. He's just, it feels like once he breaks free, finally, he's like, I have to do something now. I have to score. I have to find somebody. And they are speeding him up in a way that he typically is not sped up, in a way that OKC doesn't like him to be sped up. So I get it to a degree, but to your point as well, I think when you have McCain out there or Isaiah Joe cash in threes, when you have AJ Mitchell racking a closeout from the weak side, when you have Chet cutting and flashing or getting offensive rebounds, it's like, I think it's really deflating for the Lakers. Cause again, I mentioned it earlier, like they'll play 12 to 18 seconds of really good defense. And then there's an offensive rebound. There's a back cut for a layup. There's somebody breaks free off the dribble and gets into the paint and then either hits a little jumper or kick out for an open three. It's like, again, I continue to say they're winning the battle against Shai, but they're losing the war. And I don't think they eliminate the doubles entirely. I think they could be more strategic with where they send the doubles, but I also think at some point they're going to have to play this a little bit more straight up because it has worked for stretches and it has worked specifically to limit Shai. The issue is this team is far deeper than just Shai. And I think if the Lakers continue this, it will likely be a sweep and it will likely be you held Shai to 20 to 22 points per game in the series, but you also allowed AJ Mitchell and Chet to both average over 20. McCain averages 15 off the bench. And then between like Wallace and Dort and Hartenstein and Caruso, they each kind of take turns having their own 10 to 15 point games. And like, it just adds up to a point where you lose. And I would almost like to see like, what does it look like if Shai just gets 40 and you're not letting him create off of in terms of passing and getting them in the blender. Like if he just drops 40 with like 3 assists, what does that look like? Are you able to contain Chet and AJ Mitchell? And at that point, like, because it feels like Shai's getting like the bare minimum of what he needs to do. And then everybody else is just killing them. So I think I would like to at least see what an honest stretch against Shai looks like for 4 or 5 minutes. If it goes poorly, then the Lakers just might be out of options and they're going to lose this series regardless. But I would at least like to see it before we write it off as like not possible or not feasible. Peter, thank you for the super chat. Kudos to AR for making shots, but he was a minus 20. He was targeted again. Marcus 8 for 31 shooting in series. You can't give him 18 million per year. Is Marcus 8 for? I thought he was 8 for 28. He's 8 for 28, but I mean not much better. With the Austin stuff, he had the worst plus minus on the team. So I'm not like, and I mentioned like led the team in turnovers. Like he wasn't perfect tonight. And that's where I even kind of hedged a little with saying that it was his best playoff game. Cause I think some of those 23 point, cause that was something that people often cited was he's never scored more than 23. He had 23 5 different times. I think some of those games, it was just like better defensively, better impact overall. I think one of the issues that has impacted his plus minus, and you look at like Rui wasn't far off, Jake, Luke. I think the non-LeBron minutes have been really rough. So like -9 with LeBron on tonight, but that's also a -9 in the non-LeBron minutes, and it just feels like those groups have really struggled. I think so. It was kind of like Austin was out there during part of the struggles with LeBron, but also in those non-LeBron bench groups that didn't really quite find their footing. Like the 3 primary bench guys all had double-digit negative plus minuses, plus Austin and Rui. So I think there is somewhat of a correlation there with like that group playing a couple of shifts in each half, or a shift in each half, and that not going well. But yeah, I mean, far from perfect game. I just thought it was a much better game than game 1, and I thought he deserves credit for responding the way that he did. With Marcus, I've generally been with you. I think I've been advocating for more in that like $15 million range. Like my ideal Marcus contract would be something like 2 years, 30 million. Maybe you could talk me into 2 or 3 years, 45 million, but I would like to get that maybe even a little lower, like 3 years, 40 million, 3 years, 42 million, something like that. But I think if you're giving him the 18 or like a higher number, I think it's ideally a short-term 1-year contract, 2-year contract, something like that. And it can be a little bit of a higher number, but I wouldn't just judge Marcus off of the shooting. I think the defense, that there's a leadership component with Marcus. For what it's worth, he continues to be plus minus monster. It was the only starter with a positive plus minus tonight. Yeah, I mean, he's had a really, like, I think we have seen he probably should not be taking double-digit shot attempts in like playoff games of consequence. I think we started, like, he tapered off in the Houston series. He's tapered off in a big way to start this series. And I think clearly his role is like caretaker offensively. Like I think he still continues to pass the ball well, has 12 assists through the first 2 games. His passing, I think, is really good at finding the bigs, entry passes to the bigs, entry passes to LeBron, and shooting when his shot is falling, and then of course the defense, the energy, the tenacity. But I think he's been asked. I think he's the guy who's, especially now that Luke's role has tapered off a bit with Austin back. Like I think Marcus is the one guy who's kind of put in a spot where they're asking a little bit too much from him offensively. Peter follows up again. OKC bigs have been great. Meanwhile, DA continues to bring the ball down for no apparent reason. He is almost unplayable. Ravia is in fact unplayable. Agreed with all of these points. I think I'm blanking on who. Let me see if I could find their profile. It was this person, Skyfall. Shout out to Skyfall. I think it's at Polar Fall. They had a nice breakdown of DA's game 1 in between the first half and second half. And I thought they made some great points of OKC has clearly scouted DA and what he does. And you saw, or you've seen since the first half of game 1, anytime he's bringing the ball lower than his chest, they are swiping it. And even tonight, he had a turnover where it's a 2-man game, him and Marcus, or pick and roll him and Marcus. Marcus hits him in the pocket. He takes a dribble, starts to spin, gets the ball stripped, and it's a turnover. And it's just very, if you put in the time to scout DA, it's like very obvious the ways he gets stripped, the ways he gets blocked, the ways he struggles with the ball. And again, this is going back to like his draft profile days of can struggle to hold on to the ball, can struggle to play big at times, and does bring the ball down. And those are all things that when he's been at his worst this season, he's done. And he's doing them in this series. And like, you can't do that against Isaiah Hartenstein. You can't do that against Chet either. And you can't even do that against, because it's not been just those guys. It's actually been the guards digging down as well. Lou Dort has a couple of strips on him. Case on Wallace. Like, it's not just the bigs either. It's actually, it's been a group effort of like, it's basically like we know what this guy's going to do when he gets the ball. He's going to try to do some sort of spin move into a hook or a turnaround in the middle of the floor, or if it's an offensive rebound, he's going to get the ball and bring it down. Or even if there's a couple times he actually just kept it high and went up for it, but then Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein are big enough and good enough rim protectors to block or alter that. And it was a couple times he got some deep seal position and got fouled. And so that, I guess, doesn't really show up in the box score other than like on synergy with the fouls drawn or whatever. But I also think that's like OKC's done a good job of, there are teams, or like against Houston, how many times would DA get the deep seal, maybe get fouled and still finish and get an and one opportunity? Houston's like, no, if we're going to foul this dude, we're going to foul him hard, and he's not even getting the shot off, or he's just kind of flinging something up that's not really close to going in. So, I think they've done a great job scouting him. They have made him, I would say, more unplayable on the offensive side. He has had some nice possessions switching on to guards, but in general, my biggest issue with him continues to be, I just think he gives guys too much space when he's switched on to them, and even that Chet 3 from the left wing, it's like, I know Chet's quicker than him and could drive past him if he's too up on him, but I just think he almost invites jumpers over him, and then he kind of does this thing where he kind of turns with his arm up and he's like, I contested it, but it's a soft contest, and I think he needs to be up in guys' space a little bit more and actually leverage, if you drive past me, I do have good foot speed and athleticism for a 7-footer, and I can stay with you and rear view contest and chase down block you. I'd rather him try that rather than I'm going to like kind of fake close out with my arm up and you just shoot over me. And it's like, if DeAndre Ayton's in your face with his arm up, you shouldn't be able to shoot over him because he's got like a 9-foot whatever standing reach. Like, that's a tough shot to make. And like, there's been some shots over him that I think have just been tough shots, and like it's hat tip to OKC, but it's also been some of the like kind of pseudo closeouts that aren't really effective closeouts that I think he's got to be better with. An NBA enjoyer. I'm the last thing for the super chat. I'm the last person to blame the refs for losing. OKC is better. However, this is the kind of game that makes you gag at the NBA getting in bed with Vegas. I'm not going to go there. I'm just not going to do that. But I do think, like, I'll say, I thought there were elements of, I thought Marcus grifted a lot tonight and they didn't call most of it. And I thought that was fair. I thought Austin grifted. They called some of it. They didn't call all of it. So I thought the Lakers, like, they didn't benefit from some of the grifting, but they also did. I think with Austin, like a couple of those fouls, you probably could have said he exaggerated the contact. On the OKC side, I mean, I think they've done a pretty good job with Shai. Like, I think there was maybe one drive where he picked up a foul on Luke, I want to say, where it was a bit questionable. But, I mean, Shai is, he attempted, 3 free throws? I mean, he got some free throw line more tonight, 9 free throws, but you know, there's always going to be an element with him, a little bit of that in overselling the contact. But like the Chet, you know, they overturned the Chet flop and called a foul on him. So ideally, you don't need to challenge that. Or, you know, I guess OKC technically challenged it. But yeah, I mean, I hear you. If you look at, LA had 5 more fouls. OKC took 5 more free throws. I do think it was closer than some people might be suggesting it is, but certainly I would say the Lakers were on the shorter end of the stick tonight. I will not deny that, but I won't go so far as with that. Savage, thank you for the super chat. Jake can go. Literally the reason they gave up 10 points in less than 5 minutes. He touches the ball and loses all thought. It's been, yeah. I mean, I'm at the point where, like, I think you just got to go in a different direction. I've understood to a degree why JJ's kept him in the rotation, just because I think, like, coaches are creatures of habit. And I think especially when you don't have on paper depth, which the Lakers just don't have on paper, it is tough. Like, Jake was the first guy they signed in free agency, right? And Jake played in all 82 games, and Jake helped throughout the season. He was not a perfect player and certainly had some rough shooting regression at times and sometimes the turnovers and whatever. But Jake was like a steady bench player for the most part for most of the season. But between the Houston series and this series, and really just, I think, the second half of the season, him falling off a cliff offensively, it's been rough. I will continue to echo, I wish the Lakers had, like, if this was OKC and you could just turn to more Isaiah Joe or more Aaron Wiggins or more Jared McCain or whatever, like that would be great. I'm not even going to, like, the top guys of, like, Caruso, Wallace or whatever, but it's just not the reality of the situation. Lakers don't have that type of depth there, and they're going to have to go to guys much lower down the totem pole. But it feels like it's got to be probably a duo and Bronny. Like that's probably the two guys I would go with. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. Marcus Smart isn't a good 3-point shooter. Stop taking so many threes, just defend and facilitate. I don't have an issue with the ones that are open, and there is an element of, like, you've seen. I will give Marcus credit in the sense of, like, OKC has at times, like, they're guarding him with Caruso tonight for stretches, and, like, Caruso is their ace, Caruso is the guy who you're putting on, like, I still think he's probably, like, their per possession best defender, or at least among the perimeter guys. And like, that's the guy that, I mean, we've seen him guard LeBron, we've seen him guard Austin, we've seen him guard Marcus. Like, they were putting some real attention on Marcus tonight and trying to disrupt him and just limit him offensively from, like, a ball handling, creating perspective. So he has caused some adjusting, I think, a little bit on the OKC side. But to this point, I think the real ones for me have been the pull-up threes. And I mean, this was going back to the summer where I said, because I went through Marcus Smart's shooting data, and it was like Marcus Smart, typically above average catch and shoot guy for most of his career. Marcus Smart, bad pull-up 3-point shooter, and he insists on taking multiple pull-up threes per game, and that has deflated his 3-point percentage. Like if Marcus just recalibrated, and obviously it's a little bit different right now with like Luka being out and just what the Lakers are asking of him, but like in general for his career, if Marcus took like 20% more catch and shoot threes and reduced his pull-up threes by 10, 15%, whatever, he would often be, I think, a high 30s 3-point shooter. And we would look at him slightly differently, but it's just been, he cannot help himself sometimes with the pull-up threes. And he's often been a high 20s to low 30s% pull-up guy, which just is not close to good enough for someone to be taking that many of the, like even a couple of those, even one of those arguably is like a bad shot. So I'm with you on this. I think they need to recalibrate the shot distribution, shot selection a little bit. And I would try to get Rui and Luke in particular. I actually think, again, I think LeBron could be more involved offensively. I think Austin's probably been in a good range overall in terms of usage and shot attempts the last couple of games. But I like to see LeBron, Rui, Luke, and even DA if he can finally get going again. That would be the way I tweak it. NBA Enjoyer, thank you for the super chat. I'm out on Jake, man. Don't need to retain. Not as good as Rui. Well, I definitely agree with the last part. And that goes without saying, but we can say it. The thing with, he's under contract for one more year, and the Lakers are not going to waive him. So I think if they were to move on from him, it would have to be including him in some sort of deal. But we'll see. It's just he's become unplayable, and the issues, they just don't have a great alternative right now. Mint Millions, thank you for the super chat. They're not even playing bad. These games were winnable. Yeah. I mean, that was the opening point I made at the top. They, despite the final score, despite being now minus 34, in the first couple games in the series, they were in both of these games. Game one, deep into the third quarter. Game two, almost midway through the fourth quarter. It's just been, you cannot have the lapses and allow the runs that, they're going to go on a run at some point. And of course, even through the first three quarters, like they'll have the occasional run or two where they create some separation. But LA is just, it has felt like they've hit some sort of wall where they're keeping it close. And then OKC just extends it to the point of breaking the game open. Peter, thank you for the super chat. If OKC goes back-to-back, they will be a top 5 team in modern NBA history since 1980, given their depth and net rating. 96 Chicago, 17 Golden State, 86 Boston, 2000 LAL. Statistically, yeah. I think there is... They remind me of the pre-KD Warriors in that, like, for a variety of reasons, I think people just really don't like them and don't fully believe in them. Remember, go back to the 2015 postseason run. The whole theme of that run was like the Warriors can't win the title. They shoot too many threes. They shoot too many jumpers. Charles Barkley had the famous teams that shoot, you can't win a championship relying on jump shooting. And like that, obviously, they were an elite defensive team, and that part people overlooked, but like you can, because the Warriors did that. From like a statistical profile perspective, I agree with this. I think there are some recent teams that I think like most of the 2020 champions to me have been like relatively, it's an interesting debate amongst all those teams, right? Like the 2020 Lakers, I think they're one of the best modern defenses, not statistically on the same level as this OKC team, but you balance being an elite defense with having 2 of the top 5 players in the league in LeBron and AD. At that point, then 2021, like Giannis was on just like a different level. Like that was peak Giannis, and he was unstoppable during that postseason run. 2022, that was maybe peak Steph or in that conversation, right? Probably comparing that versus like 2016. 2023 was arguably peak Jokic, and then you also had like Murray turning into Michael Jordan for a playoff run. 2024, the Celtics, like I think that group with how they played and their depth versus this OKC team would be interesting. So some of the recent teams, I do wonder like what that would look like of their peak versus OKC's peak. But yeah, I mean, on paper, yes, I would wonder like, what do they look like against the 2013 Heat? What do they look like against the 2009 Lakers? What do they look like against, I don't know, 2014 Spurs? Like pick. I think there are some teams that would give them a run for their money potentially in a series, but I think I would say this, like, to me, they're going to go down as a top 3 defense of the modern era. And arguably you could order their rotation however you want to order their rotation, but none of these teams had like Jared McCain was their 11th man in the first round. None of these teams had an 11th man like a Jared McCain. Like their depth is just, I think they're maybe the deepest team of all time. Like it's just, that's like their superpower, is that they can play any style. They could go 2 big, 1 big, small ball. They could play fast. They could play slow. They could play a half court game. They could play a full court game. Like they could throw the hounds at you, but they could also throw size at you. It's just that they're crazy. Mint Millions, thank you for the super chat. Making Luka available to the media was an obvious ploy by the Lakers to put the 8 weeks out there so he doesn't get grilled, plus to respond to Windhorst. So the interesting thing with it is typically, I've talked about this before, like injured players have no responsibility to speak to the media. The only thing would have been, like, let's just say for argument's sake, or for this hypothetical here, that the Lakers get swept. Luka would need to be made available for season, like end of season exit interview, availability. But outside of that, injured players only need to speak to the media when they are cleared to return. Now, Luka's obviously not been cleared to return. They can technically speak to the media whenever they want. It's just the way that it typically goes is they don't, like, they're not obligated to. And even you'll see it, a guy gets injured in a game, they don't have to talk to the media after the game. So an injury is like the one get out of talking to the media card that a player gets of, like if you don't talk after a game and you're requested, that's when you'll see people write it in the story or tweet out, player X like left the locker room or left the arena without talking to the media. And the reason that's put out there is it's kind of putting the player on blast, because it's like, hey, we requested you. And like by the letter of the law, players are supposed to, if you are requested post game, you have to talk. And also if you're requested at practice, you have to talk. Like that is in the CBA and part of the media contract with the players and these companies that are paying them, is like, these guys have to be made available. The exception is when they are injured. And then it is only when they are cleared to return, they have to be made available, typically at a practice. Or again, if the season ends, then at the end of the season, they have to talk to the media. So we will talk to Luka again at some point here, whether it's him returning or the season ending. But I don't have any, I've not heard that directly, but that would be my read on it too. Like there had been a lot of noise. They had put out a timetable for Austin. Like the Lakers, if you go back and look at what the Lakers put out 4 to 6 weeks with Austin. There was never a timetable with Luka. It was just, he's out for the regular season and then he's out indefinitely. So there had been some reporting on 4 to 6 weeks, or that he might be back end of first round or might be back second round, but nothing from the Lakers, nothing from Luka. This was the first time we heard from him what the truth was. And we learned it was actually more serious than the Twitter doctors had been saying, or any of the national reporters who had reported on it had said. So that was enlightening, and also kind of put into perspective, like, he's probably not coming back. I mean, maybe they surprise us and he returns, but like it would be pretty shocking to see him return like 2.5 weeks early based on that timetable. Like with Austin, it was a day early based on the 4 to 6, right? And he had ramped up a week going into that. But with Luka, I mean, you typically don't return 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks prior to your timetable. Peter, thank you for the super chat. I can't believe Philly chose Grimes over McCain. I mean, they could have also just kept McCain anyway, and then figured it out Like you didn't have to get off of McCain. But yeah, I mean, I like Grimes still. I don't like Grimes, I think, as much as a lot of Lakers fans. And I wonder how much, I feel like there was a Grimes push after the Luka trade. So I do wonder how much of that is like Luka fans who have become Laker fans now, or like Mavericks fans who have become Lakers fans now. Like I think there's a contingent that really likes Grimes. I'm not that high on him, but yeah, I mean, they functionally did choose that. And McCain is showing that like what he showed pre-injury his rookie year was legit. And I think he could do even more. It's just the role he's in. He's primarily a catch and shoot guy and occasionally like a secondary playmaker. Easy peasy. Thank you for the super chat. How can a team get such a pass on the fouling defense then also get the benefit of flopping on both ends also? This is a question much of the league is asking, and it's the frustrating part with playing OKC is they dictate the terms of engagement on both sides of the ball, where they will draw the fouls and contact and some of the flopping stuff, and then defensively they'll also do some flopping, drawing offensive fouls against you, but they also maul you defensively and get away with it. So, I mean, I do want to try, like, I try to be fair. I try to be objective. I think the Lakers have gotten away with some contact. I think particularly with Shai, they have been, I've been seeing a lot of jersey grabbing off the ball and like not letting him get open. And so I still think in the aggregate, OKC's gotten the better end of everything, to be clear. I'm just saying, I don't think it's been as lopsided as some people are making it out to be, but it's certainly, especially more so tonight. I actually thought game one was pretty close to even. And if anything, maybe the Lakers got a little benefit of things. Game two, I think clearly went OKC's way in that regard. Daniel Caesar, thank you for the super chat. As frustrating as it is in the moment, we knew we were playing 8-on-5 this series. That said, Jake has been unplayable for 3 months. Give Adu his minutes. It seems like JJ is listening to the give Adu his minutes crowd. I thought they were probably going to go in the Bronny direction, although it wasn't like a like for like replacement, just because JJ has not played Adu consistently at all this season. But like, you know, he's given, like he gave like that Boston game. I've seen a bunch of people reposting the Boston game highlights. I thought Adu played well, and I said that after the game, and then like he just gets buried in the rotation, right? And he's obviously had some setbacks with the knee, and I think that's been the biggest thing that's been the hurdle for him. But I still think the Lakers need to find 9 guys to play, and that's, I mean, Adu is like supposed to be the 9th guy. So if Adu's replacing Jake, you still need a 9th guy, and I guess maybe that's Bronny. Kaylin, thank you for the super chat. Thoughts on the very questionable officiating moments. Also, at times seems like theme of the chat is Jake is not playable. Yeah, we're in agreement. I like the energy Adu gave us in limited time, though. Yeah, I would like to see more Adu out there. I would like to keep it. I would like to have as much spacing with the Adu lineup as like if you're going to keep Jake in the rotation, I would like to split Jake and Adu. If you're going to get Vando back, I would like to split Vando and Adu. I just don't think you could have functional offense against this team with those guys out there, because one of the things that OKC does that's like one of the highest level things I've seen a defense do is they do a great job of, I mean, they even help off Kennard and Rui, and like Rui's burden them on the weak side, as we've seen several times, but I'm watching them, like they'll be 10 feet off Luke Kennard and like not be worried and be like, we're going to be able to rotate out by the time the Lakers make this pass. And so if you have a guy who's a non-shooter, they just don't care at all. And they're not the type of defense that like they are rarely going to give up. Like how many just wide open back cuts have the Lakers gotten in this series? Even, you know, some putbacks and stuff offensively, but it's like, they're capable of packing the paint and ignoring someone, and also not just like letting them cut or flash into the middle for a wide open dunk or layup or something. So I do think when the Lakers are playing 2 to 3 non-shooters, it does really compromise the floor, specifically against this defense. And there needs to be an element of spacing them out and having, and I don't know, maybe that's you dust off Dalton or Nick Smith Jr. and you test out their shooting and see if they can kind of, you know, keep the defense honest in that way. But I mean, Dalton came in immediately at a turnover, and I don't think JJ is going to go that route. I think very questionable would be an appropriate way to put it tonight. I did not think it was a good game from an officiating perspective. I thought both teams benefited, and both teams also had things go against them. But overall, I thought OKC benefited more. That's like the most political way I could put it. Jamie, thank you for the super chat. There's no reason not to bench Jake for Thiero at this point. Seriously, what do we have to lose? Just bench Jake. He gives you nothing. I'm at the same point. I think it's not the bench Jake for Thiero that I think is the issue. I think it's JJ said he wanted to go 9+ guys tonight. He really went like 8.5, and I think they need like an extra bench guy. So it's more so like who I think that might be trending towards just Jake being behind Thiero in the rotation. It's who else is above Jake in the rotation? Is it Bronny? Is it Dalton? Is it Nick? Is it Maxey? I don't know. Is it Vando coming back? I don't know. We'll see. Jamie follows up. Jake having effort isn't good enough. We aren't winning with Jake. Embrace the unknown. Put Thiero in. Maybe he's worse, but maybe he's not. Yeah, no, you're not getting any pushback from me on that. Intel is wild. I think the super chat, sign and trade Reaves, please. He can't play defense. Let him go elsewhere. We will talk about Austin and the contract stuff after this series. Maybe the Lakers win and they go to the Western Conference Finals, but like assuming they lose, which right now they were heavy underdogs. They are down 2-0 in the series. I think there'll be plenty of time for that conversation. Pastor D, thank you for the super chat. Hate to say it. I equate continued high turnovers to we are simply a low IQ team. How can JJ go small ball in the last 6 minutes? I mean, JJ's there's something to this. I was wondering if LA would throw out some small ball at some point, and I did not anticipate it down the stretch of the game. In JJ's defense, DA and Jackson weren't exactly like lighting it up on either side of the ball, and they both had defensive mistakes and fouling, and DA was basically unplayable tonight offensively, and then Jackson gave you like some limited stuff offensively, but also there's like I think a rim protection and rebounding limitation with Jackson, particularly in this matchup. So I guess I understand him throwing something at the wall in that regard, but did feel like maybe not the best time to try that. Although again, like the few minute stretch there from DA to Jackson, I thought was borderline disastrous. So I maybe you go to Maxey at that point, but they need someone to like put an elbow into Chet on these offensive rebounds. So like someone needs to, like, I'm to be clear, like I'm not advocating for anything like dirty, but it's just, he's just like moving dudes or like jumping over dudes. And like at some point you have to, I am on the side in general of I like someone's continually getting to the rim against you. At some point you have to like hit him with a hard foul. And maybe that's like an old school antiquated perspective on my part, but I mean that maybe that's how I played basketball, when I would pick up flagrants and stuff in my high school days. But like I just think at some point he's dominating them in the paint to the point of like someone has to do something, and maybe that's where Maxey comes in. Maxey is known to muck it up a bit, but it's weird because I don't think the Lakers are a low IQ team, but I think there are some. I think there are some low IQ players maybe and we're talking basketball IQ here to be clear, but like low basketball IQ players within the rotation and guys who can sometimes struggle with processing or decision making or whatever. It's just, it's tough to say that because you look at what they did to Houston and you look at like LeBron is maybe the highest IQ basketball player of all time, or he's in that conversation. I think from a defensive perspective and a role player perspective, Marcus is also in that conversation for like one of the smartest like role players ever. I mean, sometimes could get carried away with the shot selection, but like Marcus is like a high level defensive guy and leader in the locker room and whatnot. And like, So the Lakers outthought Houston consistently, and that's partly a coaching thing, but certainly on the floor and with like through LeBron. So there are high IQ guys, but obviously sometimes I think parts of the supporting cast cannot be and can struggle with reading the defense or making smart plays or whatnot. So it's tough because I think they have some really high IQ guys in the rotation, but it is brought down at times by some of, I mean, we'll see some of the guys make the same mistakes over and over again, or it fluctuate at times. I also think there's like a motor component where sometimes guys either are gassed or just like running low with their motor, and then that also leads to sloppiness and turnovers and whatnot. But there are definitely times they are a low IQ team, but I think it's tough to just have a blanket statement. Like I can't call I just punched a box. I can't call a LeBron team like a low IQ team just because of how smart LeBron is and how much I respect his intellect and how much I think that seeps into the rest of the group. But I mean, I'll say this, like sometimes you just watch LeBron and see who LeBron is upset with and see his reactions to certain things. And like when LeBron gets very animated on mistakes, those are often low IQ mistakes. And that is when, you know, some of that stuff is shining through. Rando, thank you for the super chat. Is it weird I feel more confident in this team? We lost, but now I believe in the trio, JJ, and our culture for the first time in years. So shout out Late Night Gang. Appreciate it. And then Rando follows up. I don't think LA is beating the spoiled allegations, Jovan. People are reacting like Luka wasn't out and OKC doesn't have a 10-man rotation of starters. Certainly an element of this of like, you know, this is not, the Lakers just cannot, I think from, even if, you know, because we've had the Lakers offenses look better without Luka, or like look at, you know, the way they've done this or that without Luka. And I don't want to relitigate all of that, but like, even if nothing else, if we're talking about like Jake LaRavia not being playable, and even having to like test out Adu, who's very unproven, just tonight, if you took the 16 minutes from Jake and Adu and you took, Luke plays 16 minutes instead of 26, and you shave off a couple from Austin, a couple from Marcus, a couple from Rui, and you got to, let's even say conservatively, like 30 minutes for Luka, which is obviously far fewer than he'd actually play. You don't think that would have a big impact on LA? Like it obviously would. OKC, to the earlier point about them being able to withstand Shai being off his game, they can, not only can they withstand that, they're withstanding J-Dub, who like on paper is at worst their third best player, but as recently as the beginning of the season was considered their second best player, and probably their second best offensive player if we're delineating between like him and Chet. They're missing that dude, and they have not really missed a beat. They're 6-0 in the playoffs and have won 5 of the 6 by double figures. I think I've won, all 5 by like 15 plus. So, or 5, the 5 by double figures have all been like 15 plus. So like they're just a well-oiled machine that doesn't miss a beat without, like, regardless. Of course, if you miss Shai and J-Dub and Chet, I think at some point they're just without enough of the top end talent. But as long as they have like 2 of those guys, they have so much depth that like they can replace. And even within like the defensive guys, like if you lose Dort or you lose Caruso or you lose Wallace, like the other 2 just play more, right? And you play more AJ Mitchell, you play more McCain. Like, I mean, look at the rotation tonight. 3 dudes cracked 30 minutes. Chet, AJ Mitchell, and Kason Wallace, and they all barely cracked 30 minutes. It's just, I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches there. So I think there has been a little bit of that. To this point, I actually agree with you. I feel better. I feel better about the Lakers than I did. Certainly a month ago, but that was coming off of the Luka Austin stuff. But like, I mean, definitely like 2 months ago, like going back to like early March before the Lakers had really shown the turnaround with that stretch. I think what we've seen from JJ and his ability to game plan, his ability to problem solve, his ability to, like, I think he's certainly got a ways to go. And I think is far from being a fully formed coach, but I think there's been real progress from last season, and some of his blind spots from last season have been better. Some of his strengths from last season have been better. And so there's a lot to be encouraged by with JJ. I think there is, to your point, some real culture here. Like, you probably would have to go back to the championship team and the second year. Then I think the culture changed after there, and then they were sort of in the wilderness for a few years. So I would definitely say that JJ started to build a culture, and LeBron's a part of that. Luka's a part of that. Like, Marcus this year, DFS last year, like there's been guys that have been building this culture. And then to your point about the trio, it's like you have Luka, who is just coming off of one of the best months of his career and statistically second or third best season of his career. LeBron showed that, like, I mean, dude's still a top 10 player. It's just absurd, but and obviously, very overqualified for the role that the Lakers were putting him in as the number 3. And Austin, I think, is more of that number 3, especially in comparison to how great Luka and LeBron are. But he at times, was able to step up as the number 1 or number 2 in the regular season, and was the number 2 during a big chunk of that March run. So I think there is something here where, like, longer term, you have your MVP candidate in Luka. I think Austin can be more of like LeBron. You probably want to preserve him. Like, and he will preserve himself to a degree, but like you want to preserve him for the playoffs, where you know that when he needs to rise to a certain level, he's going to just be. I mean, we've seen what he's done this postseason run, and what he's obviously done throughout his career, even up until like late 30s, early 40s. So it's almost like I talked about this at times during the whole Austin versus LeBron debate, but it was like, I think you lean on the 27-year-old who has been playing at a very high level, and you kind of ride that. But then once you get to the playoffs, like it's like when they play OKC or San Antonio or Houston, the more athletic teams, that's when you lean more into LeBron. And obviously that's how it's played out to a degree. So yeah, I mean, I think the trio, like post January 1, they were dominant with those 3 on the floor. They went from being a nearly double-digit net negative to a double-digit positive with those 3 on the floor. I think they really clicked together. Again, JJ, the culture, like I do think there are things longer term that are trending up, shorter term and long term are trending up. They have to nail the offseason, and they have to nail how much are you paying LeBron, how much are you paying Austin, which guys are you keeping, which guys are you acquiring, what positions are you acquiring, what needs are you acquiring. Like, there's a lot of work at hand for LA to truly get to, I think, to be even like sniffing that OKC San Antonio level, which someone had mentioned earlier. But I think there's a lot to be encouraged by, and I think the foundation is better than people probably thought, even as recently as 2 months ago, but even as recently as like 2 weeks ago, because a lot of people, myself included, were skeptical of the Houston series, and like they showed what they like, So yeah, I think there's a lot to be encouraged by. Andrew H, thank you for the super chat. OKC has looked beatable. Refs are horrible today. They have looked beatable, and I think the Lakers will at least get one. I mean, if I had to bet, I would say 1 in LA, but who knows? And yeah, we touched on the reffing. I don't really want to get too much more into it. Hotspot Casino, thank you for the super chat. I'm tired of the refs calling fouls for LA, and then LA trying to sway the calls. It's BS, play ball. I could not agree more with you. I think, and this has been an issue for this group at times, and I think there are certainly times like Luka factored into this with his technicals and some of his stuff with the refs at earlier in the season. But this has been a team-wide thing for a lot of the season, and it's not just Luka. I think at times it's LeBron, it could be Jackson, it could be Marcus. I think Austin has been progressively worse with this. JJ obviously can get into it with the refs and picked up a technical tonight. I get it. I thought they got the short end of the stick overall, but at some point you have to just play through it. And I think like that's one thing. Like OKC had a couple moments. Obviously Caruso got a technical from the bench, and like there are some times they were complaining about stuff, but they complained far less. And now you could say, well, they're getting the benefit of the doubt and they're getting some more calls and whatnot. And like, that's totally a fair counterpoint. But I also think like, to me, the comparison, it's low hanging fruit, but like OKC is the new San Antonio from like the 2000s to like mid 2010s San Antonio, like the Tim Duncan Spurs, where they were kind of like everyone called them boring. Nobody really liked them until like the late 2010s, where I think like people like that 2014 team that won the title, but it was a lot of just even the colors. People would be like, well, it's like black and white and silver, and like that's like boring. It's a boring logo. It's boring colors. No one, they had the low TV ratings in like the early to mid 2000s with the Spurs, but there was just an element of like the Spurs kind of were just always steady. They didn't get into it with the refs. They didn't play. I mean, they had Bruce Bowen doing some of the Lou Dort stuff, but it was just like no matter how unlikable or boring they were at times, they were always steady. And I think you've seen that with OKC in the series. I think the Lakers have to do, like, I mean, JJ even mentioned that after the game. He's like, we kind of like, they're never rattled by the refs, and like the Lakers need to do a little bit more with that. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. Would you still want Smart, Kennard, Hachi in the summer resigning? Playoff Hachi is a genuine thing. Why he is worth $18 million. I had already switched this to back. So I mean, I've done a few spins with this, but I mean, for most of the time, for me, it was Marcus, Rui, Luke. I think after the first couple games, there was a lot of chatter about like, we have to keep Luke. He's worth X amount of money, whatever. And I was on the, okay, sure. Like Luke, I mean, if he's going to score 50 points over 2 games and shoot like that, like you got to keep that guy. And it really started, I think, with the Dallas game where he had the triple double. He had the 16 rebounds. He had a couple double digit assist games down the stretch of the season. And it was like, okay, Luke Kennard could do like far more than just shoot. The Lakers have been sort of holding him back. But I've also tried to say like throughout the season that I think this is all evolving, and that ultimately the playoffs are like the crucible that will tell us who fits and who doesn't. And to this point, I would have it Marcus, Rui, Luke. I think the tricky thing, the only tricky thing for me with Rui is that I still don't think, even if you get, because I think they're going to keep the big three together, but even if you lost one of the big three, like it's not going to be Luka, it would be either LeBron or Austin. But let's just even say you get, some people still want them to trade Austin, not resign or whatever. Let's say you even lose Austin. I still, like, my biggest issue with that starting group was the Luka, LeBron, Rui trio, and how if that's your 2 through 4, I just don't think you have enough defense collectively. And like you need like a Jaden McDaniels, a Kamara, a Dort, like you need a stud, like all defense guy to really prop up that defense. And like Marcus has been a diet version of that, but I think you need a certain caliber of defender in there next to those guys. And so I just think at least with the current version of the group that they're likely going to return, he's still probably going to be like, if you're keeping Marcus and Rui, it's still probably going to be Marcus ahead of him. So that's where just, I do wonder where like the Rui number comes in ultimately, because he is so valuable in this role. I just don't think this role is going to be his role moving forward. I think it's going to be Luka back, Marcus still as the 4th starter, or maybe they even move Marcus to the bench and get someone else, and that player's the 4th starter. So I just like, if Rui's your 7th man, like how much would you want to pay a 7th man? Because I think if you're paying a 7th man $18 million, which obviously you're referencing what he's making right now, that's a pretty high number for a 17th man. A 17th man, a 7th man, but like that $17-18 million range, unless you're getting some real discounts with some of the other guys above him, which we'll see how they fill out the rest of the roster, that gets a little tricky. But I would have it in terms of guys I would prioritize keeping as Marcus 1, Rui 2, and Luke 3. In fact, I'm not entirely off Luke, but I'm sort of off of him just in terms of I think he has just not, like, I think if they had OKC's depth, for example, I think he'd be out of the rotation. I just like, whereas Marcus and Rui would still be in the rotation. And I just looking at like what Isaiah Joe and Jared McCain give the Lakers is what Luke Kennard is supposed to be giving them consistently. And I just don't think he's been obviously was up to that level in the first couple games in the Houston series, but I just don't think has been able to replicate that. And I think has been pretty problematic defensively. So I think if you're keeping Austin and Rui, I don't know if you can keep Luke on top of that. And at some point you just have some holes in the defense in your rotation that, but yeah, I mean, Rui's been such a playoff riser though, that I think the Lakers should really try to keep him. I just don't know. The math is going to have to math at some point, right? And depending on what you're paying LeBron, depending on what you're paying Austin, depending on what you're paying Marcus, at some point, it just gets hard to keep everybody or keep everybody at a certain number. And if guys are willing to take pay cuts, then that's a different story, but we'll see. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. People said Jake, 12 million, 2 years was a bargain. Even AR drove him to LA. Now I get why Memphis let him go. Yeah, I mean, I would even say though, in Memphis and Sacramento, he was a better shooter and a better offensive player. So like, that's like I would say this is, to me, he's been like much worse offensively than he was last year. I mean, last year he shot 42% on threes. Now it was 2 threes a game, so it was like very low volume. But this is the worst he shot in his career. So I would even say it's worse than like what Memphis or Sacramento was. Ortho, thank you for the super chat. Hey, with respect, if Luka shot 63%, 50% on threes and had 31 points, you'd be lauding him. AR had 109 defensive rating again. Why hate on him so much? I feel like I can't win. I mean, I think I made this point. I made this point in a comment a couple of videos ago, but I mean, I had a whole takeaway praising Austin. I don't know where this sentiment is coming from. And if anything, I've been accused by a segment of the fan base by being too pro Austin and having blinders on and like never criticizing Austin. So I feel like I have continued to be in like the 99th percentile of Austin optimism. I criticized him after game 1 because I felt it was appropriate, and they're really like, I still talked about his passing and some of the defensive stuff and like some of the things he did well, but Lakers, like, they needed buckets from him, and he did not provide that in game 1. He provided it in game 2, and he was efficient, to your point. And he got to the free throw line. I talked about him putting their defenders in jail. I talked about the mid-range game, the aggression going into the paint. Like, I thought Austin played really well tonight. I think there was a question earlier about his plus minus. So maybe you caught me talking about his plus minus, although I also talked through the context of like, I think that might've been more lineup based in terms of the lineups he was in, and especially some of the non-LeBron lineups. But I'm rarely called an Austin hater. So this is on some level refreshing to me, but I mean, I get it from I get called a LeBron glazer, a LeBron hater, a Luka glazer, a Luka hater. I'm often called an Austin glazer, but rarely a hater. So I guess I appreciate you mixing it up a bit. Morning Spring, thank you for the super chat. What's your thoughts on Robinson / Robert Williams III / Grimes, Thibault, the Sumo unrestricted free agency, maybe Collins on a low contract bench player as well? So I'll run through these quickly because I'm hitting the 2 hour mark here, and I see I still got a bunch more questions. But so Robinson, I think I wouldn't mind him as a starting center, but I think you got to wrap him in bubble wrap. He's like a 20 to 24 minute a night guy. So like it could even be a situation where it could even be a 3. Like I would say I would like the Lakers to invest in the center position, but I think it either needs to be one of 2 things. It's either like the higher level, the Walker Kessler, the Jared Allen, the Duran, the Nick Claxton, more expensive 5, or it's more of like a 3-headed monster. And so you could have a version that's like Mitchell Robinson, DeAndre Ayton, Jackson Hayes, or something like that. And you kind of go matchup based by DA or Robinson starts, but they're in a more limited low 20s role. And then you go matchup based off that. And we've seen like OKC and Houston kind of have some version of that. Obviously like higher level in OKC, but like in Houston, Steven Adams would come in and start or come off the bench depending on kind of how things were going, and similar OKC's mixed things up in the past before. So I'm open to Robinson. I think there's the injury concern and just in general, like keeping him in bubble wrap to a degree throughout the course of the season. Similar thing with Robert Williams. I think Robert Williams will be cheaper than Mitchell Robinson in part because of the injury stuff and just his history. But I would take either one of those guys as a placeholder starter or like a high level backup. Grimes, I've said this before, I'm more open to Grimes if they don't retain Austin. If they retain Austin, I think Grimes' number. It's just like if you're keeping Marcus, if you're keeping Rui, I think you have to spend the remaining money on a center, like one of the Robinson Williams types, or a more two-way wing. Thibault, I would like for a low price, like a bargain, maybe like part of the room exception, depending on what they do with that. But he's had his moments as a shooter, but for the most part, he's been a minus shooter, and I just think he's more of it's kind of more in the Vando mold, but like I think he's a better player than Vando. Then Dosunmu, I mean, he's one of the breakout guys of the playoffs, so I think he's going to command 20 plus million, if not 25 plus million, and he's probably like I'd be open to the Lakers signing him. I just think it's going to be a little tricky, and then also if you're deploying your financial assets towards like I guess he's in that like 6'5", 6'6" range, but he's not quite like a small four. Like I kind of would like someone more 6'7" to 6'9", but if that's the best player they can get, you can't get a Walker Kessler, you can't get a Peyton Watson. Dosunmu is definitely on the short list of like best guys available. So then Collins really depends on the number, but he's kind of a tweener for me where he's like a 4.5, and I just don't. Again, it depends on the number, but I'm not. I agree that he's like a bench player, and so like to me, there's a lot of there's some overlap with Rui, where if you're keeping Rui, I don't think Collins makes a lot of sense. Skevcast again. Thank you for the super chat. MVP is most valuable player. How could it be argued that SGA's value is greater on his team than Ant, Wemby, or even Luka? Narratives win. I mean, he was not my MVP for what it was worth when I did my awards show. I mean, he undeniably had a great season, averaged over 30 points per game, shot 55% from the floor, but, won clutch player of the year, like likely going to win back to back. But the team side of it, I think is a big part of the argument against him winning, right? And that's part of what people have argued. But I also think we have to remember this is a regular season award, not a playoff postseason award. And sometimes we can, I mean, it's always funny when you see like the coach, like there was the year that Dwayne Casey won coach of the year and got fired, right? After the playoffs. And there's, or the year Dirk won MVP, but got sent home in the first round as a 1 seed. It's like, sometimes the playoffs can warp how we view the regular season award when it was a regular season award, not a postseason award. And he had a really strong first round against Phoenix. Lakers have just done a really good job against him. And I think that's a testament to their defense, a testament to their coaching staff, testament to JJ. But I mean, if you want to make that argument, I think there's a lot of, to this point, about narratives and like record, and he's been given the crown for now, and well, I think it's gonna be tough to go 3 in a row, but we'll see. Lewis, thank you for the super chat. The fact that OKC could go on an incredible run while their first option rides the bench really shows how much help the MVP has. Tells me all I need to know. Yes, I know I'm hating. There's, of course, some hating going on, but it's fine. Lakers are down 2-0. I understand the hate. It also depends on like what your interpretation of an MVP is, but just because there's no like clear definition. Is it best player on the best team? Is it player with the best stats? Is it player with the biggest on-off difference, which shows like how important you are to, the best on-off difference on like an elite team. Like there's just so many things that go into it that it's tough to have like a blanket definition for it. Peter, I think the super chat, non-LA Q&A trade, Murray for Mobley. Who says no? I'm assuming you're talking Jamal Murray. I'm trying to think. I assume Jamal Murray, right? There's no other. I mean, I would kind of think both sides say no here, only because if I'm Denver, like you need, like Mobley would help a lot defensively and cover up for Jokic's limitations, but at the same time, you also need a certain level of offense. I know Murray wasn't there in the first round against Minnesota offensively, but like I actually think offense has been an underrated problem for Denver in terms of shot making, shot creation, and like they've just not been up to par these last couple of postseasons. So I think it's a clear offensive downgrade for Denver, though obviously a clear defensive upgrade. And then on the Cleveland side, I mean, you already have Mitchell and Harden, so I don't really see how Jamal Murray fits there unless you're moving off one of those guys. But I don't really love a Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell. I mean, I don't really love either of those potential combinations of Murray and Harden or Murray and Mitchell. So unless you're talking about a different Murray, which off the top of my head, I don't think you are. I actually kind of think both sides might say no. I think if this is kind of my argument, different version of my argument of like, when people throw out some of the Austin sign-in trades, I think the Lakers need a certain level of ball handling and shot creation back if they lose Austin. Doesn't mean they have to replace him with a guard necessarily or a like-sized player, but I think it's similar with Denver where the drop-off from Murray to anybody else offensively is so stark that like Mobley, I mean, I know Mobley could do some point forward stuff, but like he's not replacing Jamal Murray. And so I think do you flip Aaron Gordon at that point? And what could you get for Aaron Gordon? Or do you package Gordon with something else and you go for like, there are obviously subsequent moves both teams can make in the aftermath of this trade. But I think if they flip Murray, it needs to be for more. Like, I think there's been some people throwing out like Murray for Jaylen Brown. I think that's a little bit more interesting, although that's probably not enough on the Boston side, but that to me is kind of like that's where you're keeping a certain level of offense, and he's not the same passer or playmaker that Murray is, but it bolsters the defense and maintains a certain level of offense. Zach Wan, thank you for the super chat. OKC theatrical flop versus ref disaster class series. We'll say it's predictable. I'm not surprised by how the first couple games have gone in that regard. Easy peasy. Thank you for the super chat. DJJ and Peyton Watson equals ideal offseason. That would be great. I would love that outcome. Big DJJ guy. Orthodoc, thank you for the super chat. Asked again about Austin. I mean, I already talked. I think you asked this exact. This actually might be a different account. Am I getting? No, it's the same account. Again, I don't understand how I'm being accused of being an Austin hater, but I appreciate the question. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. Winning now is all about depth and not stars. OKC is the blueprint. Rob should meet Presti and get some advice. We need a roster revamp and get much younger. Luka can't win with this kind of team. So I agree with this to an extent. I still think stars, there's a balance to some degree, because I would even argue if we're taking a step back here and looking at the way that the Lakers are approaching this series, and even the way they approached the Houston series to a degree, but more so this series, the Lakers are functionally saying, we cannot guard Shai in the half court. We do not have confidence in our isolation perimeter defense and our coverages against the pick and roll against him. And we have to throw out, we have to throw the kitchen sink at him. We have to double him. We don't even want him getting shots up in the half court. And so the reason I bring that up is because they're not guarding AJ Mitchell that way. They're not guarding Chet Holmgren that way. If J-Dub was here or, playing, they would not be guarding him that way. And so point is like just having Shai is forcing the Lakers to defend OKC's offense in a very drastic manner that is having a ripple effect in terms of allowing them to play with advantage, allowing them to create open threes, allowing them to get downhill, allowing them to get offensive rebounds. And that does not happen if you don't have Shai out there. Now, counterpoint could easily be like, look, they've won the non-Shai minutes and like they've been humming without him. So like, sure, that's where the depth is stepping up. And also looking at like the depth of OKC versus the depth of Houston, you see the difference between the two rosters and how they function with their star being doubled or even with their star off the floor. But I still think there's an element of you need a certain amount of talent at the top. Like, I think of one of the teams that stands out kind of along these lines is like this is going way back now, but like the 2013 Nuggets. If you remember that 2013 Nuggets team, I think they won 50 something games. I think they were the 3 seed, something like that, and they lost in the first round to Golden State. And that was the series where Andre Iguodala, secretly committed to play to Golden State, and people were wondering if he was like throwing it or whatever. And then he ended up signing with Golden State in the summer. But that group, it was like Andre Iguodala, who was the closest thing they had to like a true star, but you made an all-star team or I forgot if you made 1 or 2, but ended up going to a different role in Golden State. But like it was him, Ty Lawson, Kenneth Faried, Danilo Gallinari, Wilson Chandler, like a lot of good players, a lot of solid players, but there was a limitation there. So it's like regular season, a very deep team would go 10, 11 deep, win 50 games, lose in round 1. So I still think if you look at the teams that are going to advance, like even if we look at the teams right now, it's like, okay, Lakers, LeBron has been playing like a top 10 player. OKC's got Shai. Minnesota's got Ant. San Antonio's got Wemby. Those are all top 10 guys. Detroit has Cade. New York has Brunson. Those are both top 10 guys or in that back end of the top 10 kind of range. Donovan Mitchell, similar class, and Tyrese Maxey has risen to that level. And you could even argue like when Joel Embiid's at the top of his game, he's in that conversation. So it's like you still need like you still need a top 15 player at worst, but really I think a top 10 player to have a true chance at winning a championship. Lakers have that in Luka and LeBron, but they need more depth. And to this point, so I guess I'm only disagreeing a little bit in terms of like not needing stars. I still think you need a certain level of like your best player, but you also need depth. And we've seen teams like a Detroit or like a San Antonio or like a Minnesota have a certain amount of depth and have certain contributions from their bench. And we've seen the value in that. And obviously OKC is the blueprint. But I agree with like, I would love for them to get younger, better defensively, more athletic, better shooting. I think there's like some real things they could upgrade with the roster, but I do like the bones of it for sure. And a couple more here before we wrap. Sarah Talks Ball, thank you for the super chat. JJ's coaching his butt off, creative and adaptable. I cannot agree more. I think he's pushed a lot of the right buttons. Obviously pushed almost all the right buttons in the Houston series. Has pushed a lot of the right buttons, and like the defensive game plan, the offense for the most part, like I think they can spam some of the things that have worked, and that would be like my only nitpick really offensively is I think they found some things that have worked and they could spam those at an even higher level. But yeah, I mean, he's been dealt a rough hand. Like you're without Luka and Austin, then you find a way to go up 3-0 in the series. You get Austin back, but he clearly was not himself. I mean, I would say tonight was the closest he's looked like himself. You're still without Luka. You lose Vando, who had become an important bench piece as a defender and rebounder. Jake's not playing. Like you're just in a tough spot where you're just running out of bodies, and he's finding ways to keep this competitive. And obviously, you don't like. There's no moral victories here, but I think JJ's done about as good of a job as realistically possible. And then final couple here from Jamie. Thank you for the super chat. This offseason should be about winning next year. Luka's 28, futures now. You have to bring Braun back. No free agent can bring what Braun brings come playoff time. Agree. I don't like any of the future talk. Like it is now. It's now. You go for it now. And then he follows up. Oh, and I'm all in on Dort. His defense is legit. Oliver Braun. He will be a streaky shooter, but having him and Smart on the same team would be huge. I would say Dort has grown on me as well. He to me is still like, it depends how you want to, like the rest of the group and the makeup. Like to me, he's actually like kind of fits it. Like he is similar to Smart to me in some ways, where I think Smart has actually defended up a little bit better than he has defended down. Like I think some really quick explosive guys have given Marcus some problems at times. And I feel like Dort's a little bit of the same way, where he can bang with like the bigger forwards and even some of the bigger guards. But I think Austin, for example, has looked much more comfortable and better against Dort than he has against Wallace or Caruso. And it's just more of like, I think Dort is more of like the big guard and wing defender, and even some big wings like LeBron. Caruso's kind of the Swiss Army knife that can defend 1 through 4 or so. And then Wallace is more the backcourt guy who you release on whichever guard you want to just lock up and have him guard 94 feet. So like the Lakers don't have the Caruso and Wallace on the, I guess Marcus is like the closest to Caruso of the guys on the team. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to Dort. Like the shooting is a thing, and I would like to have a little bit more of a reliable shooter. Like I think we've seen some of the limitations with Smart being in that role and just LA not having reliable shooting. Like tonight, Luke, Austin, and Rui were the only guys to hit more than 1 3. And it would be nice to see that number be 4 guys or 5 guys pretty consistent. Like be great to be having like 5 guys hitting 2+ threes a night, right? Like that. I think that's a healthy offensive ecosystem, and LA just hasn't quite gotten there consistently. Like with Luka back, I think you'd be there with Luka, Austin, Rui, Luke, and then depending on LeBron and Marcus's jumpers that night. But yeah, I mean, Dort would be a great addition to the team, to be clear. And then the Lakers will have to, then you all will have to deal with the backlash from the stuff that Dort does. All right. I am going to wrap here, though. I'm doing the herd in the morning, so going to try and get some beauty sleep for that. But appreciate you all for rocking with me for over a couple of hours. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. I'll be back. I think I'm going to do a game 3. I'll do my game 2 rewatch, game 2 additional notes, game 3 rewatch. I'll hang out at some point tomorrow afternoon or evening and go live. So be on the lookout for that. And then obviously game 3 in LA on Saturday, I will be there. And then, game 4 on Monday. But shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Appreciate you all. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. As a quick reminder, merch is live. It is in the show notes if you've not checked it out. If you are a member, you also get a discount, which is on the Discord channel. So also be sure to check out the Discord. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Appreciate you all, and talk to you all tomorrow.